How we doing out there, everyone? This is Brutal Monkey. They're still not learning anything.
And now,
Video games, entertainment. But I stumbled across a video that gave a little bit more clarity. We're going to go over that at the end. But this is an article from Salon. And this is what I mean about them basically halfway getting it right. Now, I kind of do believe that Gamergate did open everyone's eyes up to how the media has been deceiving us. They have recognized that that eventually has led to the rise of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Doge, due to the fact that the people they were villainizing basically went to that side. Now, where they do get it wrong is the outcome of everything. They're still name calling. Yeah, they didn't really learn much. One of the most unnerving aspects of billionaire Elon Musk's illegal rampage through the federal government is how stupid it is. How is it illegal and why is it stupid? Why? Because you might get caught in something? To be sure, the more important issue is that it's reckless and evil. The way you were reckless with our money and evil and stealing from us while inflation went through the roof. And now that Doge is starting to lean towards giving each American $5,000, these are the same people vilifying that, saying they don't know what it can really do for you.
Because of their incompetence. So no, we are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you.
not going to divert their money. James, give me a chance to speak. Theoretically, It's my program. We don't have the money, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a Ponzi.
So we didn't have the money for Ukraine, right? We didn't have the money for Ukraine. $350 billion.
I never do this. I don't want to be that guy. Do I have to silence your microphone?
Really? Under the false specisies of efficiency, he's slashing workers at random and targeting entire departments that happen to have the power to hold the businesses accountable for law breaking. But his sadism is accompanied by a trollish glee that reads far more like a 13-year-old boy's failed attempt at humor than you would expect from a 53-year-old businessman and the father of 12. So yet again, they still keep going with this moral high ground, and you can't wag your finger in people's faces and expect for them to listen. Nobody wants to be told what to do. If you can't clearly, concisely convey your arguments and let a person decide on their own, maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and come up with another elevator pitch. That's all. You can't blame me for not listening to you. You can only blame yourself for not being more effective. The name of the initiative is the Department of Government Efficiency, mostly so it can be abbreviated to Doge, a silly meme from 12 years ago turned into Musk's favorite cryptocurrency. He tweets about Doge nonstop, grasping on his self-serving less and conspiracy theories with a credulity so all-encompassing it cannot help but be willful. He does this under prolific names like Harry Bowles, which were all a little dumber for reading. They still don't get it. You can't name call the richest person on the planet. I mean, the way I look at it is you can only criticize somebody as if you're doing better. I know I'm not, so I ain't got room to talk. I only got room for improvement. We'll continue on. I'm going to go through this just to kind of give you a little idea of the flavor or the air of this article. Dodge owes everything to Gamergate, from its aesthetics to the tactics to its manpower, which largely draws on the same young men, now 10 years older, who are radicalized to the far right via social media. Now, what is the far right exactly? I wish that instead of name calling, you would clarify a lot of these things to kind of get me up to speed on where your mind state is at. But you just can't keep throwing names on top of names on top of names and expecting it to work. There's only so many ingredients you can put on top of a hot dog before the stuff starts falling over. So, I mean, laying it on thick, I understand you think that's a good strategy, but it doesn't work out in the end. Musk projects isn't like Gamergate, but straightforwardly is Gamergate composed of many of the exact people rehashing the same unjustified grievances. Literally, in between bouts of attacking federal workers as parasites, Musk and his fanboys also whine that video games are too woke and this justifies fascism. I don't think it justifies fascism. Fascism is the government and corporations working hand in hand. Now, just from the optics that I see, that seems to be more fascism under the Joe Biden era than it would have ever been from Trump. If he wanted the government to have more control, wouldn't he be expanding their reach versus shrinking it down to make it harder to hold on to things? So they keep spreading lies. And that is actually what led everybody over to the Trump side. Gamergate showed that you have no problem lying to us. And you're still doing it. So you haven't learned any lesson. You keep banging your head into the same brick wall. From what I understand, insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results each time you do it. So now we go to a tweet that I believe sparked this whole article. From Sneed. The point is that you shouldn't have touched our fucking video games, and now we're going to rape the United States government and promote the rise of the National Socialism in America. The election of Donald Trump is a direct consequence of Gamergate. This has to be a great troll job, but it had them shook in their boots, so very effective. Very effective. But what Doge owes to Gamergate goes much deeper than the gripes of these suffering arrested development. The propaganda tactics and strategic incoherence of Doge come straight out of the year of Gamergate, sharpening their techniques through a sustained and still painfully stupid harassment campaign against feminists online. Why is that? From all I can see is feminism is basically uplifting yourself while stepping on someone else. And I think that is something that needs to be stomped out. I'm the greatest only because I make you the worst. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be the correct tactic. I think an even playing field and whoever's the best, so be it. That seems a little more realistic. I think that's something people can get more behind than, hey, have this group of people tie one arm behind their back while we work with both hands, and then we're going to talk trash when they don't keep up. The first lesson of Gamergate, as they say here, was the propaganda value of bad faith, reinforced by endless repetition. Gamergaters were motivated primarily by two grievances. The feminists were criticizing sexism in video games, and crucially, that these same feminists seem to be having more sex than the Gamergaters. Gamergaters realized quickly that outsiders would not be sympathetic to their real complaint, which was, how dare women who have more sex than us make me feel bad about the sexist video games. Instead, they inverted a claim that female gamers developers were exchanging sex with male journalists for good reviews, which was true. We find all of this out. So they're still being disingenuous, even though the facts are all out there. This is outrageous. It wasn't true, but ethics in journalism was credible sounding enough to trickle gullible journalists into writing stories that cast Gamergate in a more sympathetic light than the misogynist witch hunt deserved. Okay, it wasn't a misogynist witch hunt. It is found out to be true. So this is undeniable, and they still don't get it. Musk and his Doge bros are using the same tactics now with false claims that their goal is saving money. This is absurd to anyone who looks even with a millimeter below the surface, and not just because the touted savings are lies. Elon Musk's decisions aren't informed by research and analysis. They're vindictive, erratic, and fueled by outright lies and racist grievances. Where's the racist grievance? I don't see them attacking people. So I don't understand. Like, this is the thing. You can't just make claims without some kind of backup. Like, see here, see this article, look up something, Google this. Give me some kind of lead to your claims. You can't just name call someone with anything not being founded. It's true. This is all an opinion piece. And where is the truth in this? You're trying to hide but that you don't like that he's cutting the spending for your causes, but he wants to give it back to us. I don't see where the harm in any of this is. It's our money in the first place. Those needs to be understood not just as a small group of people trying to destroy the federal government from the inside, but as a larger social movement that lives primarily on X, formerly Twitter, and is driven by Elon Musk's cult of personality. The sea of brain donkeys screaming for the heads of federal workers on X is gross, but it does generate the energy and sense of momentum necessary for Musk's activity. So I guess these are the same people that are rooting for Mario? I wonder how you feel about that. I mean, the tough part about making rules is that, yes, when you're wronged, you do want to strike with the iron fist, but also do remember when you're making every rule, striking with an iron fist, eventually that fist is going to come for you. So I do understand being stern, but a little bit of grace wouldn't hurt, just in case that gun gets put on you. And to just go full throttle, name calling, accusations, outright lies, because you don't like something, I think is more despicable than any claim that you can make about him, because I think a lot of these are unfounded. We can clearly see your bias in this article, so that's not unfounded. It's one thing to feel a certain way, but don't push that poison out there on people. I mean, America spoke. What do you want? Don't be a sore loser. And they're saying, just to wrap it up, they're saying that Gamergate failed. But I don't believe that people accusing the industry of being more than favorable to these companies was a lie. We're even seeing it now with the Gulf of America claim. The reviewers will take points off if you use that. So how is any of this fair? I think you look at something and you don't like it, but that doesn't mean you get to change it. Just create your own and enforce your own rules. There was the NBA, and people didn't necessarily like the way they were recruiting things, so they came up and made the ABA. The ABA became so successful that the NBA actually started to look at them and wanted to purchase them. Unfortunately, I think it only ended up being about 6 teams, but they didn't like what they saw, so they created their own. If it's really as great as they thought it would, it'll speak for itself. That's all I'm saying. So now we can go on to this video.
Why all of this is happening.
Now, he's talking about video games and the ideology that is poisoning pretty much all of entertainment from what I see. And I thought this was very important. This got the wheels turning in my head. And shout out to him. He's been doing great work, especially as of late. So I'm going to go ahead and let him cook. And just in case you didn't see this, see what you think. Give him a shout out, give him a like. You can go back and see the original video. I'll leave the description in the, leave the link in the description is what I'm trying to say.
Spent the last few weeks really digging into a lot of this, reading through a lot of papers, more than I would have liked. And I think I've come up with at least one of the answers. Now, I say one of the answers because it's not as easy as just saying this is the answer and this is the reason, because you're dealing with individuals. And when you're dealing with individuals, you're almost always going to come up with multiple reasons for multiple things. It is entirely possible. For some of these studios, it genuinely is just a pure belief thing.
So I wanted to let him get that out there. Let him lay his little foundation for where he's going with this. But this is extremely insightful. It's hard for me to kind of understand this form of thinking, But it sounds very spot on from what I've seen out of entertainment the past 10 to 15 years. We're primarily focusing on the last, I'd say 4 to 6, but I think it's been going on longer than that.
They believe that women and minorities should be equally or even overrepresented within video games because they genuinely believe that this is a fight that's worthy of being fought. Another answer, and this is not what the video is going to be about, but I do feel like I need to do my due diligence and give you all of the information ahead of time. We know, thanks
you did
to
a great job
in the past and all of the studies that I've cited in the past, we know that the overwhelming majority of women play exclusively on mobile, and they also exclusively play life sims, casual games. They don't really step foot in the realm of the RPG or the action or the shooter or the sports games. And it might genuinely be that for a lot of these developers, a lot of these studio heads, their thinking is that the reason more women aren't actually participating in the PC space, in the console space, or just in general sort of more mainstream AAA titles is because of underrepresentation.
No, it's because they would get cooked. There's no way they can hang with the top fighting streamers, the top fighting games, Call of Duty, shooters. Yeah, there's no way. It's not only that men want to live out in more of a fantasy where women want to make the fantasy what they want it to be, like they want to control the fantasy, and we're happy to explore someone else's fantasy. But we just have different interest in the games that we're seeking. Seems with the mobile games, women want to test their world. And with men and open world RPGs, Grand Theft Auto, different things like that, we want to challenge ourselves and explore someone else's world. But one thing I will say, it seems that men want to create something for everyone to enjoy. It doesn't have to necessarily be their own personal beliefs, but something that other people can enjoy, even if it is something that's their personal belief. Women, on the other hand, no, they got to shove their personal belief down your throat. You have to agree with them, and there's no exception. That makes it very tough to enjoy something if there's no leeway, no grace, no ability to have your own choice. We'll continue.
Because there are no women in these video games for them to look up to and for them to aspire to. They're sticking to the mobile stuff because it's fun, it's easy to get into. And you know what? This is a wrong idea. It clearly doesn't bear out in the actual results that we're seeing. But at least there you can say there's a sort of rationale to their thinking. So that is all definitely there. And there's, I'm sure, hundreds of other reasons for individual investors. But for this particular video, I'm going to go down a very different path. And we're going to take a bit of a walk on the wild side here. And we're going to go to a topic that has, on the surface, nothing to do with video games.
And that's where I want to stop it one more time before he really starts to cook. Like, bravo to him, because he basically went through the back door. He went through the exact extreme of where you're trying to go. I want to find out about video games and why video games are becoming like this. Let me actually go explore some kind of psychology behind this or some other form of movement. Maybe there's something that I'm overlooking. And bing, 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 bing. Tell him what he's won, Johnny. He was right on the money.
We're going to be talking about transhumanism. Now,
like, what?
There's a lot.
Transhumanism? You mean trainees? They're all humans.
A lot of you that might be going, wait, what? Why are we talking about transhumanism? What even is this about? Aquilon. And it's difficult to explain. So I just asked Grok to quickly break it down for me. What is
Grok AI.
transhumanism? What does it
Way to
mean?
go, Elon.
And the short answer here, transhumanism is a philosophical and intellectual movement that explores how humans can evolve beyond our current physical and mental limitations through the use of science and technology. Now, it might be a very easy thing for people to go, oh yeah, through science and
So to me, all I could think of was basically putting your brain in a computer. Like eventually the androids they're making, you can download your, I guess, subconscious to it. But this is even further than that. I also, I guess, thinking spiritually that once you die, your spirit rises and goes on to another plane. And nope, neither one of those. Hold on. Not those two.
Technology, that makes 100% sense. But you have to understand, the science and technology that is being referred to here is much wider than your mobile phone or the ability for a woman to now work because there's office jobs and we're no longer stuck in the mines, you know, going down below. But you have to think even broader than that. And specifically here, I want to focus on the dark side of transhumanism, the side that most transhumanists do not want to engage in.
Yeah, buckle your seatbelt, because me first hearing the term and then he's like, we're going to go to the dark side. Oh, man, am I ready for this?
Because it would shoot their sort of entire worldview, their philosophy, right through the midsection and probably cut it off at the stem.
Okay.
So when you talk about changing humanity and in sort of enhancing humans with the use of technology, oftentimes what they're referring to, these transhumanists, are to change the basic cultural phenomena that we find within human species and human cultures.
So I don't necessarily want to call it lazy because it's a lot of work, but instead of basically building the technology to get what they want done, they'd rather just try and bully us into believing something that really isn't that true.
A great example of this is the birth control pill. I know we're not even in the realms of gaming at the moment, but I promise
birth control, he went down the rabbit hole.
You have to hear me out on this, because I'm trying to show you how often ideas can formulate and ideas can come from a place of
let them cook,
genuine just ignorance. They're not trying to do something evil, but how this can just be devastating. In
the road to hell was paved with good intentions. Anytime you got something good, it can always be corrupted. Evil can't create, it can only destroy.
Long run. So the birth control pill is probably one of the biggest cultural movements or moments in the history of mankind, and oftentimes people just sort of gloss over it. We have remembrances of the printing press and what the printing press meant. We know exactly the day that the internet was shut on and what that meant for everyone. But the birth control pill, not so much. It just sort of is part of the human history thing, and a lot of people just sort of assume that it was there, you know, and what possibly could have gone wrong. But you see, the birth control pill was very quickly used by the transhumanist movement, the feminists specifically back in the day, to now say to young women that now that you can control your fertility, you can control when or how you get pregnant, it is time for you to go out into the world and have the fun that has been denied you for so long. The truth is that for most of human history, there were incredible constraints placed not just on female sexuality, male sexuality as well. Because remember, if a woman is going to keep herself pure, a lot of women also had very high standards that they placed on men, and a lot of men had to keep themselves pure, or at least in some way also live up to the fantasy that a woman would want. So the two sexes really put a lot of constraints.
So I would agree with everything he's saying. Society as a whole, like everybody collectively, their thoughts and what they'll speak out into the atmosphere or whatever, put restraints on men and women. I would say more so on women, like a 70-30 probably, maybe even an 80-20. But it was a given that men were going to be respectable. And I believe that's why all the focus was put on the women, for the fact that it was a given that the men were going to do the right thing. They were going to go to work and have the mentality to provide for a family, contribute to society, so on and so forth. The women, not so much so. And that stems from defending the country. Basically, at 18, you can be drafted and enlisted into the military to fight for here, and you might die. So that's where all this, I think, really stems from: war, defense.
Constraints on top of each other in order to ensure that matches would be made, and there's a reason for it. Women had carried a vastly different burden when it came to sexual impropriety insofar as they were the ones who would get pregnant.
Yeah, they held all the chips.
There was no way to really stop that pregnancy from happening.
That's the one thing I don't understand. If they hold all the chips, it should be a very scrutinizing criteria to get in their pants. Like, I'm not understanding that. And it's got to be something wrong if that's the natural order of everything else, except you're trying to circumvent it. Yeah, that seems wrong. That seems very wrong to me. Being able to destroy life is wrong. If I can't shoot somebody, how can I basically not give a baby a chance?
There was only one surefire way, and that was to not have sex in the first place. But then, of course, we said, hey, now we can all just have sex and go nuts.
Yeah, make condoms first.
That was a good thing, right? That was a good thing. This is a way technology is allowing the sexes to be more equal to one another and to work better together, because we no longer have to have these constraints on each other. Now, don't take it from me, because I don't want to be the one sort of preaching this to you. I mean, what do I even know? So I'm going to have Louise Perry explain to you exactly.
Yeah, he dug deep. I'm proud of him.
And why this is such a big problem. She spoke about a year ago at the ARC Foundation, and she had some incredible insights. And after that, we'll also listen to Mary Harrington, who also speaks on this particular topic, more specifically about the transhumanist movement in particular. But trust me.
Yeah, he shout out to him. He really went deep. He really wanted to answer. I want to know.
We are getting back to gaming soon.
So, I mean, I would define the sexual revolution in two ways. You know, one aspect of it is material. It's the introduction of the pill. It's all the technological changes that we've seen over the course of the 20th and 21st centuries that has transformed our lives and transformed gender relations. It's also ideological, though, and I think this is the meat of what we're talking about. I think that the neatest way of understanding the ideology of the sexual revolution is the rejection of traditional sexual norms. The idea that we can just throw them out the window and have one very simple rule, which is that everyone should be able to consent, and then apart from that, you sort of make it up as you go along.
Yeah, now that's the crazy part to me. That this has to be a woman, because you want to do something to basically rip tradition of hundreds, maybe thousands of years, and we'll just figure the rest out. What the hell kind of plan is that? No, I want everything. I want schematics. I want to know exactly what you think is going to happen, and before you start pushing this out on people. This seems very crazy. So just this whole notion and pushing it to the forefront, I'm figuring the same way that we're seeing now, that they'll go to whatever means their Twitter or X was back in the day and basically try and get somebody canceled who doesn't believe. We see it in science, we see it in video games, we see it in movies and TV.
And I think what we've discovered is that doesn't work. That actually, there was a line actually a reader sent to me from all places from a book about winemaking. It would be a very politically explosive thing to say in any other context, but in a book about winemaking, you can say it. And the line was, traditions are experiments that worked.
Basically.
And I think what we've found from having rejected all of the sexual norms and laws of the past is that they were there for a reason. And I mean, I argued very...
You got to have a talk with 4 people to basically put this idea out. Yeah, these traditions were here for a reason. Statistics shows how much we deviate from this, that society just starts to deteriorate more and more and more as time goes on.
Very strongly in my book and in my work that the winner...
First, the society's being torn down. Then, okay, society sucks. Let me go escape. Now they're tearing the escapism down.
The sexual revolution have not been
it's a
women
cancer.
In general. Maybe some individuals, you know, I think some individual men have definitely done well out of the sexual revolution, although not all men. You know, it's a complicated story when we're talking about men and women, but I think what's clearly true is that the great losers of the sexual revolution have been children.
The technologies of the sexual revolution are the foundation.
Now, this is the second speaker he was speaking of. I just went ahead and cut that out. but she cooks very well too.
Foundation on which we base the illusion that we can escape from traditional sexual norms, because they do go some considerable way to flattening the fundamental differences between the sexes, which are what produce those norms. I mean, if you think what's now called the sexual double standard really arose out of the fundamental asymmetry in who gets pregnant. You know, the idea that women are punished more heavily for having sex outside marriage comes straightforwardly from the fact that it's women who get
God forbid you just have some discipline.
Pregnant, and fatherless babies are everybody's problem. You know, they're not just something which can be.
No, they're your problem. Eventually they will become my problem when they break into my car, but no, that's kind of a you problem. Do y'all care if I eat today or not? That's a me problem.
Palmed off on an individual. So there are real, in absent reliable contraception, there are real practical problems which, however unfairly.
So out of these two speeches so far, I haven't heard anything that's necessarily positive out of any of this way of thinking. It seems very selfish to me, to be quite honest.
We're managed by these asymmetrical social norms around who's allowed to do what and with who. And then birth control, fairly reliable birth control comes along, and suddenly it seems as though we don't need those constraints anymore, because actually women can have sex just like men. As it turns out, and as Louise has written so persuasively, in fact it doesn't quite work out like that, and in fact there are as many negatives as there are positives to that apparent increase in freedom.
Now, after all of that, you might be saying, okay, Echo, how does this relate to the gaming industry? For those of you, I'm sure some of you have already made the connection.
I love the way he puts the bow on this.
But the current problem within the gaming industry is this belief that men and women are the same. There are no differences between what a man wants and what a woman wants. Everything gets mushed together. And you see this with things like body type A and B. It's the eradication of the idea of different sexes existing, because fundamentally it's just body types. It's not as if a male or a female have any advantage or disadvantage over the other. It's just body types, and you choose a body type A or a body type B. It's where the pronoun argument come from, the idea that you can just choose your pronoun and it is in no way tied to what you physically look like. All of these things are things
crazy
from the transhumanist.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to leave a link in the description box. Give it a like, give it a comment. That blew my mind. Boosh. That blew my mind. I had no idea that any of that had anything to do with why all my entertainment sucks. But once he said it, it made perfect sense. The writing and stories for most of all entertainment I've seen in the past, I'm going as far as 10 years, stinks. And I get it from this belief. There's no difference. A woman wants the same thing. Hence, what King Valkyrie and Thor, she can knock back as many drinks and fuck as many chicks as Thor can, because that's just how chicks are innately. And we're seeing this, like he said, with the body types from video games. The Dragon Age Veil Guards, Alan Wake's, the kind of destruction of men and women. And once he heard that, I'm like, whoa, no wonder there's so much rejection and so much divide between everybody. You believe something like that? Yeah, I don't see how we can get together. But this been Brutal Monkey. They still don't understand. To go back to the original article from Salon, I went through all of those hoops to kind of show you this is where the crazy kind of comes from. Okay, they're fundamentally thinking that we should all be the same and have the same desires. Coming from a viewpoint, a lens of transhumanism, which I never would have suspected. You try and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll upload when I can. See y'all. Brutal Monkey.
And now...